An ambitious young businessman, Warren Buffett, is in the early stage of building his financial empire. He set his sight on a struggling company out of Midwest, hoping to break it apart and sell its assets. Sanborn Maps provides minute-by-minute maps of power lines, water mains, and city traffics to insurance companies. Before the advent of GPS, accurate real-time maps are very difficult to make, and they're very valuable for insurance companies. They help insurance companies analyze risk factors to come up with better insurance policies. But as the industry gets consolidated, Sanborn's customer base declines, sending its stock price well below its book value. To Buffett, this is an opportunity to make money almost at no risk. He discovers that a company owns a portfolio of assets that, if liquidated, would generate $65 per share. But there's just one problem. To convince the company to liquidate that portfolio, he will have to gain a board seat. To do that, he will need more capital. And Buffett knows precisely where to raise money. Because Buffett thought this investment was a sure thing, he got his entire family on board. His aunt, his mother, his father. He tried to raise money from everyone he knew. Buffett has one purpose: to have enough money to gain a board seat in the company. 6 months later, he's successfully elected as a board member of Sanborn. To make his investment profitable, Buffett immediately calls for a board meeting, proposing to other members his plan to liquidate that portfolio to unlock value. But to his surprise, they reject Buffett's plan. Buffett discovered that none of these board members owned enough stock. They were just a bunch of freeloaders using company resources for themselves. Warren Buffett has no interest in standing down. He is going to intimidate the board members into submission. Buffett was taught by his mentor Ben Graham to avoid concentrating too much money on one investment. But Buffett goes against that advice and immediately buys more shares of Sanborn. With enough control of the company, Buffett returns to the board meeting. He informs the board if they don't follow his plan, he will fire them all. Afraid for their own benefits, the board members cave in, agreeing to split the company. And the young investor from Omaha walks away with 45% profit on his investment. He will go on to dominate the investment industry for the next 60 years. He will leave such a mark on finance, he's nicknamed the Oracle of Omaha. Warren Buffett is born into an affluent family. His grandfather owns a successful grocery store. His father makes a comfortable living as a stockbroker. But when Buffett turns 2, all of that prosperity comes to an end when the country crashes into the Great Depression.
It's hard for us to imagine the suffering and the immediacy and the fear and the sense of being out of control, the loss of control over one's life that the Great Depression brought on to so many families.
Losing all of his fortunes during the crash, his father, Howard Buffett, struggles to recoup. But he quickly figures out a way to turn the catastrophe into an opportunity. He realizes that since people have lost their fortunes in speculative stocks, he will instead start selling safe stocks, ones that will help his clients protect their capital. Howard Buffett quickly earns a reputation as a prudent stockbroker who can help his clients protect their assets. His honest and principled way of doing business leaves a huge mark on young Warren Buffett.
The best gift I was ever given was to have the father that I had when I was born. So in all ways, he was teaching me. He never taught by telling me things. He just taught by example. He had unlimited confidence in me, even when I screwed up. And that takes you a long, long way.
To Warren Buffett, his father is his hero. Warren idolizes Howard Buffett mostly because he can never get any love from his mother.
Well, I think we were terrified of her. When I'd wake up in the morning, I'd listen to hear her voice. I could tell by her voice was going to be a terrible day or not.
Warren Buffett's mother has a family history of mental disorders, many of whom were admitted to insane asylums.
My mother would have terrific headaches, and you didn't want to be around her when she was having the headaches. And she would lash out more. She would never do it in public.
Even when Warren was a young boy, Lila Buffett often verbally abuses Warren Buffett and his sister.
You have a parent who's constantly making backhanded comments at you, constantly criticizing you, constantly comparing you with other kids and shaming you. And, that's kind of hard for a child to hear, especially from your parents who are supposed to be your protectors, supposed to be your primary caretakers. That's definitely going to interfere with your beliefs about your world and yourself.
His mother's constant verbal assault makes young Warren scared and withdrawn from socializing with other people. He develops the habit of collecting stamps and bottle caps. Buffett, as a young boy, really enjoyed sorting and counting things. I think it's because it gave him a sense of order and predictability. But as Buffett enters his teenage years, his childhood problems send him down a dark path.
In the nation, the only permanent way to prosperity is a balanced budget.
You have heard Congressman Howard L. H. Buffett, Republican member of the House of Representatives from Nebraska.
Howard Buffett is elected as a congressman, and he moves his family to live in Washington, D.C. The young Warren Buffett suddenly finds himself in an unfamiliar environment, unable to adjust to the life in the country's capital. With Howard being consumed by the duty of a congressman, and as his mother continues to terrorize him and his sister, the teenage Warren Buffett becomes rebellious. He started skipping schools and hanging out with the wrong crowds. He stole stuff like golf balls and was involved in practical pranks and scams. Warren Buffett's rebellious behavior continues until finally Howard Buffett decides to intervene. He tells his son, "You can do better than this." Knowing that his father, the man who means more to him than anyone else in the world, is disappointed, Warren Buffett is devastated. He vows to change his ways and to never let his father down again. On a trip to New York with his father, Warren Buffett is introduced to Sidney Weinberg, the senior partner of Goldman Sachs. The meeting left a huge impression on young Warren Buffett. He saw Weinberg as the kind of archetype that he wanted to become. The young man is determined to become rich, and he will do that by starting his own businesses. He made a lot of money from delivering newspapers, and he also owned a paintball machine, and he was able to convince the local barbershop to put his machine in. Buffett excels at calculating odds. He realizes he can leverage this skill by getting into horse betting. By the time Buffett graduates high school, he's earned $5,000 through his many ventures, the equivalent of $50,000 today. While initially planning to skip college, Buffett is persuaded by his father to continue his higher education. Since he graduated top of the class, Buffett is accepted to Wharton School of Business. While most students attend Wharton to become future executives for companies like GE, Warren Buffett has only one purpose: to become a better investor. He's delighted to learn that a co-author of his favorite book is teaching at Wharton. The book is called Security Analysis, and the author is David Dodd.
The year went by, and I got very good grades in college. I mean, my grades improved as I went along in school, but I didn't feel I was learning that much there.
But his attitude changes when David Dodd introduces Buffett to his co-author, a man who would change Buffett's life forever. Benjamin Graham is a professor at Columbia, pioneering an investment technique that comes to be known as value investing. After witnessing the calamity caused by irrational speculation during the Roaring '20s, Graham rethought a better investment strategy, one that could make profits without taking on much risk.
Everybody in Wall Street is so smart that their brilliance offsets each other. And that whatever they know is already reflected in the level of stock prices pretty much, and consequently what happens in the future represents what they don't know.
Buffett has been an admirer of Graham long before they meet, and Graham immediately sees the potential in Warren Buffett.
There are half a dozen that had a tremendous influence, and certainly Ben Graham influenced me enormously in terms of giving me the investment framework to go forth. I wouldn't be remotely where I am without Ben Graham.
After graduating college, Buffett enrolls in Columbia University's MBA program and also begins working for the investment firm that Graham owns. Buffett is hired as a stock analyst. His job is to search for companies that are called cigar butts.
Cigar butt approach to investing, which is where you try and find a kind of pathetic company, but it sells so cheap that you think there's one good free puff left in it. And we used to pick up a lot of soggy cigar butts, you know.
By working at Graham Newman, Buffett hones his investment skills. But more importantly, his job allows him to search for investment ideas to grow his own money, which by now stands at $19,000, or about $200,000 in today's money. And he soon finds the perfect opportunity. Rockwood is a chocolate maker in Brooklyn, New York. But due to a sudden spike in price of cocoa beans, the company struggles to remain profitable. But Graham and Buffett discovered that the company has a large storage of cocoa beans that can be sold to make a profit. There's a problem though. If the company sells the cocoa beans at the market price, they will have to pay a large tax bill, which will eat away a lot of the profit. The opportunity is too good to miss. Still unsure of how to solve the tax problem, Ben Graham finds a deal partner who comes up with an ingenious solution. Jake Pritzker is an investor with a savvy knowledge on tax laws. At the age of 32, just 7 years older than Buffett, Pritzker is looking to build his own business empire. To avoid paying taxes, he realizes he could offer the cocoa beans to the shareholders of Rockwood in exchange for their stocks. Jake Pritzker purchases enough shares for himself to build up a controlling interest, and he offers to exchange the cocoa beans at a premium of $2 more than the market value. Ben Graham immediately knows this is a perfect arbitrage opportunity. He could buy the stock of Rockwood at $34 a share and then immediately exchange to $36 shares worth of cocoa beans. He then will use the futures contract to hedge against any price fluctuations of cocoa beans, which guaranteed about $2 per share of profit at no risk. Ben Graham may have found a way to make a quick buck, but his student, Warren Buffett, is planning something even bigger. Buffett realizes that if Jake Pritzker is willing to overpay $2 in order to buy more stocks from Rockwood's shareholders, he must be convinced that it's a great company to own. Contrary to Graham's strategy, Buffett puts down 75% of his own savings in the company's shares, betting everything on a rebound of the company's stock. If Pritzker is wrong, Buffett risks losing not just money, but his reputation at his company, especially from his mentor, Ben Graham. From the ruins of the Great Depression and the savagery of the Second World War, American economy is bouncing back even stronger. As the country enters the 1950s, fortunes are being made everywhere, and the finance industry reaps the reward. Buffett is an ambitious young investor from the Midwest. He's determined to become a millionaire by 30. While working for the legendary investor Ben Graham, Buffett thinks he has found an opportunity to make his first killing. Putting down the majority of savings in just one stock, Buffett is betting everything on the chocolate manufacturer. Rockwell stock eventually shoots up from $36 to $85 a share, and the young investor nets over $13,000 of pure profit, the equivalent of $144,000 in 2022. Warren Buffett is a follower of Ben Graham, but not an imitator. He understands the essence of value investing so well that sometimes he goes against his mentor's ideas. Impressed by his protege's performance, Graham quickly advances him through the ranks. Buffett is content with his wealth and status, and he expects to be made partner at Graham Newman's company in no time. But everything is about to change. Just when Buffett is ready to be made partner, Ben Graham decides to retire and dissolve his partnership. Ben Graham lost interest in investing because he thought he had enough for the rest of his life. On top of that, he wanted to spend more time on other interests like women and fine arts. To Buffett, this event is a reminder of how much he hates not being in control of his own career. With his credential, he could easily land a lucrative job on Wall Street. But Buffett decides to do the unthinkable. At the age of 26, Buffett leaves New York and goes back to his hometown, Omaha, to start his own shop.
Months after I came back, some members of the family said, "What should we do with our money?" And I said, "Well, I'm not going back in the business of selling stocks, but if you would like to join me in a partnership," I said, "I'll be glad to do it." So within a couple of months after coming back, I set up the first partnership.
With the help of Graham, Buffett is introduced to many wealthy investors who entrust their money to his new investment partnerships. With enough funding for his new company, all he needs to do now is find a big idea. Buffett knows, to make above-average returns on investment, he needs an edge, one that other investors don't have. At that period of time, Buffett loved the pink sheets, which contain companies traded away from the stock exchange, often at a very low price. To be fair, a lot of those companies are scams. But Warren Buffett believes there are potential gold needles in this haystack, and after diligent search, one company catches his attention. National American is an insurance company located in Nebraska. Like many insurance companies, it started off as a fraud, but after years of legal maneuvering and with changes of management, it has turned itself into a legitimate company. Many of the stockholders are farmers, and they are unaware of the company's changes, thinking their shares are still worthless. But Buffett estimates the stock for the company is worth at least $100 a share. The problem is where to find those farmers. So Warren Buffett and his crew go visit those farmers in person and to buy the stock off their hands, sometimes at a 70% discount from the original value. And a lot of those farmers are just happy that their stocks are finally worth something. By going places his counterparts aren't willing to go, Buffett's bet on National American generates him handsome profits. And he applies the same approach of bargain hunting to many more obscure companies, generating 100% annual return for the first 5 years. By 1962, Buffett Partnership grows to have $7.2 million in assets, bigger than what Graham Newman could ever be. At the age of 32, Warren Buffett is on the fast track to becoming a financial titan. But what he doesn't know is that his next investment will be the biggest challenge in his career. Buffett's early success is largely due to his ability to find obscure information that others don't have, such as the pink sheets. In 2022, we have an explosion of information, so overwhelming that many of today's investors are unable to find any real value anymore. But there's one company that is solving that problem. The Daily Upside, founded by a group of investment bankers and scholars, was designed with the sole purpose of giving you real intelligence in this noisy world we live in. Their free newsletter is packed with crisp insights, actionable intel, and heavy-hitting analysis to make you a more well-rounded investor. Just recently, they published a piece on Warren Buffett and Cathie Wood, which analyzed the widely different investing strategies they both follow. Every weekday, they deliver a morning brief, followed by more detailed stories that are shaping the business world. It's becoming something I read every morning. Join me and over 850,000 investors, including Wall Street professionals who trust the Daily Upside. Sign up using the link in the description. It's totally free, and you can unsubscribe anytime if you don't like it. Applying the same investment strategy, Buffett searches for his next cigar buzz company, ones only he can unlock the value. And soon, a forgotten windmill company catches his attention. Dempster Mill Manufacturing is a family-run company that makes windmills and water irrigation systems in Beatrice, Nebraska, a small town of fewer than 10,000 people. Buffett discovers that a company has an abundance of physical assets, while the business performs poorly. The company was traded at $18 a share at a book value of $72. It's virtually unheard of nowadays, so Buffett kept on buying and waiting for the stock price to go up. Or he could liquidate the company to make a profit. Buffett purchases enough shares to have a controlling position at the company, but he fails to realize just how incompetent the company's management team is. The managers of Dempster Mill did not understand business cycles. They kept buying more parts and making more windmills when there was no demand in the market. It caused the company to accumulate a lot of short-term debt. Unable to pay off their debt, banks are ready to seize Dempster's inventories and shut down the company. To Warren Buffett, it's the worst news. Buffett has put 1/5 of his partnership's capital into this company. If the company goes bankrupt, he may lose all of it, and his dream of building a financial empire will be ruined. Desperate to salvage his investment in the company, Buffett will need help from someone who has the resources and the toughness to get things done. And he knows just the man. Charlie Munger. Munger is a prominent lawyer in California and a budding investor who dreams of achieving financial success.
He bought a windmill company, a little town in Nebraska. And Warren didn't know anything about running a windmill company. He bought it because it was cheap. And he said, "What do you do? Why can't you fix my windmill company? Who can you get to help me?" I said, "I've got just the man for you."
After assessing the situation, Munger realizes the windmill company is broken. To turn it around, Munger brings on a colleague of his to replace the chief executive of the Dempster Mill.
And so one of my old colleagues from a transformer business who was an accountant, I said, "He will fix your windmill company." And Warren was desperate. He just hired him on the spot.
They fired hundreds of workers, sold off equipment, and closed 5 branches, not only to have enough money to pay the bank obligations, but also to survive as a business. After the bloodshed, the company is viable again. Buffett thinks he has solved the dilemma, and he may finally get out of the mess by selling the company to another buyer. But he has no idea what is about to happen. Buffett may have saved the company from bankruptcy, but in return, he has disrupted the lives of thousands of working-class people in the small town of Beatrice. Many take to the street to protest. The news that Buffett is selling the business to another corporate raider causes massive outrage. In the eyes of the folks at Beatrice, Buffett is nothing but a ruthless liquidator who only cares about making a quick buck for himself. Together, the people of Beatrice start a fundraising campaign and put out $3 million of their own money and buy Dempster Mill back from Warren Buffett. The company is once again back in the hands of the local people. What Buffett did to Dempster Mill is known today as activist investing, but at the time it had a different name, corporate raiding. What bothered Buffett a lot was that he never had any yield intentions, and people should be thankful that he saved the company. Even in defeat, Warren Buffett nets $2 million profit from this investment. To his investors, Warren Buffett seems like a maverick. But to Buffett, he needs to find a way to repair his reputation. His next investment will present an opportunity to do just that. The 1960s is a turbulent decade for the country. For millions of young Americans, they feel pessimistic about the future. But an aspiring young investor out of Midwest is just as optimistic as ever. Warren Buffett has gained prominence by buying failing companies and turning them around for profitability or ruthlessly liquidating their assets. But his latest investment with a windmill company has made him rethink his approach. After facing protests with his involvement with Dempster Mill, Buffett now must prioritize his reputation along with profit. It's a difficult balance in the finance world, but he soon sees an opportunity to prove that it can be done. American Express is on the rise to become a financial conglomerate. While the main business is the credit cards, American Express also has a more secretive division that is raking in huge profit. It's a business of issuing warehouse receipts. So if you're owner of a large amount of commodity like oil, cocoa beans, you can pay American Express to inspect your warehouse and issue receipts. And then you can use them as collateral to borrow more money from the banks. But one American Express customer realizes that this process could be easily rigged for his benefit. He's the owner of a soybean oils, but he fills a large part of the tanks with seawater and installs a device to trick the inspector to think they're all soybean oils. His scheme allows him to deceive American Express inspectors to issue him more oil receipts, which he uses to borrow a large amount of money from banks. He spends hundreds of millions of loans to gamble in the financial market and suffers a huge loss until his scheme is exposed. Unable to collect money from him, the banks turns to American Express, trying to claim hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. His share price is cut in half as investors run scared. The future of the company now hangs in the balance.
Former partners of Anthony DeAngelis, the key figure in the multi-million-dollar food oil swindle, were given federal prison sentences today. They were charged with conspiring with DeAngelis to defraud American Express warehousing of $15 million with fraudulent receipts.
While American Express suffers one of the worst crises in its history, Warren Buffett seized opportunity to invest and a chance to remake his reputation. Buffett saw American Express as a very well-run company, and the market over-exaggerated this little setback. He purchases $1 million worth of shares, expecting the company to rebound in the future. But banks who lost money from the scam are demanding American Express to pay up. Legally, American Express could take it to court and argue that they don't have to pay because they are just as much a victim as the banks. The president of the company, Howard Clark, plans to pay banks $60 million as a settlement. But many shareholders of American Express think it's too expensive and the company should fight it out in the court. Warren Buffett is not forced to make a stand. He decides to support Howard Clark's plan to pay $60 million to the banks that lost money. He believes that while it comes at a huge short-term cost to the company, by paying a settlement, American Express strengthens its brand for the long term as a trustworthy company that can be accounted on. Buffett goes on to win the argument, and American Express stock bounces back, making Buffett $3.5 million in profit. Buffett's partnership keeps growing as he keeps finding bargain companies to invest. By 1965, his fund has $37 million under management. While Buffett's investing approach has made his investors and himself a fortune, it still has flaws, and his friend Charlie Munger knows it.
Well, it was perfectly obvious that he'd made so much money in the other technique that it was hard for him to leave something that had worked so well. But it was not going to scale.
Buffett has made his investment success by going against the crowd. He isn't about to change his ways. And now, his stubborn persistence is about to get him in trouble yet again as he begins to target another struggling company, Berkshire Hathaway. To Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway looks like another quick cash grab, a badly run company but full of valuable assets that can be liquidated for profit.
I bought the first shares of Berkshire in 1962, and it was a northern textile business destined to become extinct eventually. And it was a statistically cheap stock in a terrible business. Berkshire Hathaway was closing mills, and as they closed mills, it would free up some capital, and then they would repurchase shares. So I bought some stock with the idea that there would be another tender offer at some point, and we would sell the stock at a modest profit.
Buffett buys enough shares that are about to make him the majority owner. The current boss of the company, C. Barry Stanton, takes Buffett's actions as a hostile takeover threat, and he invites Buffett for a meeting. During the meeting, C. Barry offered to buy back Buffett's shares at a premium, and they agreed on a price. But C. Barry quickly goes back on his words, and it turns out the meeting was just a setup to gauge Buffett's intentions. Warren Buffett is furious. If he weren't going to take over the company before, he's certainly going to now. His emotion gets the better of him as Buffett is about to start a war to take over a company that's worth essentially nothing. Buffett keeps buying shares of Berkshire Hathaway, determined to own the company and to get revenge on C. Barry Stanton. Buffett wins the fight, and Berkshire Hathaway is now under his control. But it quickly turns into a hollow victory. The company is broken.
One of the reasons Warren's successful is he's brutal in appraising his own past. He wants to identify misthinkings and avoid them in the future. But it was an accident that he chose Berkshire Hathaway. If the chairman hadn't tried to cheat him out of an eighth, there wouldn't have been any Buffett-Berkshire Hathaway history.
Buffett may have defeated his enemy, but in return, he now owns a declining textile company. But he's finally ready to learn his lesson and to turn this failure into an opportunity for growth. He's determined to build Berkshire Hathaway into an empire that is unlike anyone has ever imagined. But he also knows he can't go at it alone. While Buffett has been taking on failing companies to make incredible profits, Charlie Munger has been quietly building his own investment fund. But the two future titans of American finance realize they share the same purpose, and it's time to join forces.